The text message glowed on my phone screen like a neon confession. Found someone richer. 10 years of building a life with Sarah, 10 years of financing her dreams, evaporated in 4 carelessly misdirected words. The anniversary dinner I'd prepared grew cold behind me as Seattle's lights blurred through my penthouse window. I'd risen from nothing, those childhood years of empty refrigerators and worn clothes, to build a tech empire through relentless work and innovation. I'd shared everything with her, my home, my resources, my vulnerabilities. She'd seen my journey as a ladder to climb, not a story to respect. The message was meant for Alex, my business rival. Not just a romantic betrayal then, but something more calculated. Something that threatened everything I'd built. When someone you've given everything to reveals they see you as nothing but a wallet, do you collapse? Or do you remind them exactly why you succeeded when everyone counted you out? Tyler Matthews adjusted the vintage Rolex on his wrist, his one concession to luxury after decades of success. His office reflected the same restraint, elegant but understated, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Seattle skyline he'd helped reshape. On his bookshelf stood a framed coffee shop napkin bearing his first algorithm, beside a photograph of his mentor James, gone 6 months now. "Elena, could you make sure the RD team gets those reports by 5?" he said into the phone, while opening the small velvet box on his desk. Inside gleamed a platinum necklace with a pendant shaped like a paintbrush, a nod to Sarah's design career he'd supported since finding her serving coffee a decade ago. "Already done," Elena replied, with the efficiency that had made her invaluable these past 15 years. "And I've cleared your schedule for tomorrow as requested. The dinner reservation at Canlis is confirmed for 8. "Perfect." "Thank you." Tyler smiled, picturing Sarah's reaction to both the anniversary gift and his news. His latest innovation would revolutionize cloud security, the culmination of work that had begun in his garage 20 years ago. A twinge in his side reminded Tyler of his recent diagnosis. Nothing immediately threatening, but a reminder of time's passage. At 68, he'd built the company, the fortune, the reputation. With Sarah, he'd finally found the personal connection that had eluded him during years of singular focus on his business. "And Tyler," Elena added, her tone softening, "don't forget your medication with dinner. Doctor's orders." "Yes, Mother," he chuckled, though grateful for her concern. After hanging up, Tyler carefully wrapped the gift, his methodical nature evident in each precise fold. 10 years with Sarah. Despite their age difference, she'd brought color into his carefully ordered world. At least, that's what he'd believed. Tyler set the last wine glass on the dining table, Sarah's favorite jazz playing softly in the background. The penthouse smelled of truffle risotto, her favorite, which he'd spent the afternoon preparing despite protests from his housekeeper that he should leave such tasks to professionals. Some things, Tyler believed, mattered more when done personally. His phone vibrated on the counter. Probably Sarah texting she was running late. Not unusual when she was caught up in her design work. They joked about her artist's sense of time over the years. Tyler glanced at the screen and froze. Found someone richer. "Leaving tonight after I get the last files. Don't text back, he might see." The message was from Sarah, but clearly not meant for him. His hand trembled slightly as he set the phone down, years of business crises having taught him the value of processing before reacting. The phone buzzed again, and again. 3 rapid calls from Sarah, then a flurry of texts. "Ignore that. It was a joke. Tyler, please answer. It's not what it looks like. Please call me back." He didn't. Instead, Tyler moved to the window, looking out at the city that had watched his rise from nothing. The child of factory workers who'd lost everything in layoffs. The scholarship student who'd worked nights to afford textbooks. The entrepreneur who'd built a cybersecurity empire from a garage startup while everyone predicted failure. Elena's voice echoed from their earlier call. Something's been off with her lately. The way she was talking to someone at the Thompson conference when she thought no one was watching. Tyler had dismissed it then. Now, pieces clicked into place. Sarah's increasing criticism of his outdated business approach, her unexplained absences, the growing financial demands she framed as necessary for her career. And that name he'd seen on her laptop once, Alex Harrington. His most aggressive competitor, 15 years younger and known for cutting corners to get ahead. Tyler loosened his tie, his reflection in the window revealing a man processing betrayal with the same analytical focus he'd applied to business challenges for decades. No outbursts, no impulsive responses, just the quiet assessment of a new reality. The anniversary dinner grew cold behind him as he turned toward his home office. Some habits from the early days never left him. Document everything, trust but verify, and always, always have a backup. Tyler sat in his home office, the space illuminated only by his computer screen. He'd cycled through every possible explanation during the past hour. A cruel joke? Impossible. Sarah's panicked follow-up messages confirmed authenticity. A misunderstanding. The message left little room for interpretation. Had he been so absorbed in work that he'd pushed her away? Tyler's finger hovered over photos of their trip to Kyoto last spring, Sarah smiling beside him at a traditional tea ceremony. They'd seemed happy. He'd believed they were happy. His phone rang. Marcus Chen, his chief security officer. Tyler almost ignored it, then remembered they had an update scheduled about the new security protocols. Marcus, sorry. Is this about the firewall implementation? Yes, but... Marcus paused. Everything okay, Tyler? You sound off. Tyler hadn't worked with Marcus for 12 years without developing mutual trust. Sarah just sent me a text meant for someone else. She's leaving me for Alex Harrington. The silence on the line spoke volumes before Marcus responded. Harrington? From Nexus Tech? Another pause. Tyler, I don't want to overstep, but have you checked your server access logs recently? The question landed like a stone. You think this goes beyond personal? I've always had concerns about her access level, but respected your decision. Marcus's voice remained professional, despite the personal subject. It might be worth checking, just to be certain. Tyler's jaw tightened. I'll call you back. Ending the call, he pulled up the company's security dashboard. As founder and CEO, he maintained administrator access, a habit from the early days when the entire IT department consisted of him and a college intern. Sarah had always teased him about his paranoia regarding documentation and security protocols. The dashboard loaded, showing login histories and file access records. Tyler entered Sarah's credentials, granted years ago, so she could use the office equipment for her design work and filtered for recent activity. The results made his breath catch. Late-night logins when she claimed to be working on her designs. Downloaded files from product development servers. Access to partnership agreements and client lists. The timing of certain downloads corresponded with Nexus Tech's suddenly competitive moves in the market. Moves that had puzzled industry analysts given Harrington's previous strategic direction. Tyler's reflection in the darkened window showed a different man than the one who'd prepared anniversary dinner hours earlier. The shock in his eyes was fading, replaced by something harder, something resolute. Morning light streamed through the office windows as Tyler methodically built his case. He hadn't slept. Coffee grew cold beside stacks of printed server logs and financial statements, his analytical mind fully engaged despite the emotional devastation lurking beneath. The server access patterns told a damning story. Sarah had downloaded proprietary algorithm specifications for Tyler's newest cloud security platform. Innovations worth millions that had taken years to develop. The timestamps were troubling. 2:14 a.m., 3 days after Tyler had shared the breakthrough with his core team. 11:47 p.m., the night before Nexus Tech announced a revolutionary approach suspiciously similar to Tyler's early prototypes. Tyler pulled up his American Express statement, searching for patterns. There it was. A charge for the Fairmont Olympic Hotel on a night Sarah claimed to be at a design retreat in Portland. The same night, Alex Harrington had been speaking at a tech conference in Seattle. "Methodical as ever," came a voice from the doorway. Tyler looked up to find Elena setting down a fresh coffee and a protein bar. Her eyes reflected concern mixed with something harder, loyalty turned protective. "You haven't slept," she observed. "There's more here than a personal betrayal," Tyler replied, gesturing to the evidence accumulated over his sleepless night. "She's been feeding information to Harrington, possibly for months." Elena nodded, unsurprised. The night of James's memorial service, she claimed food poisoning, said she couldn't attend. "I saw her downtown later, meeting someone at the Athenian. I convinced myself I was mistaken." Tyler felt a fresh wave of hurt. James had been like a father to him, the only investor who'd believed in him during those early, desperate years. Sarah had known what he meant to Tyler. "What will you do?" Elena asked quietly. Tyler turned back to his monitor, pulling up contact information. "First, I'm calling Marcus and Barbara. Then we assess the damage and develop a response." His voice was steady, the business-like tone masking the personal wound. "This isn't just about a relationship ending, Elena. This is corporate espionage." The realization transformed something in Tyler's expression. Personal betrayal he could survive. An attack on his company, his employees, his life's work. That demanded a response. The secure conference room on the top floor of Matthews Tech headquarters had hosted countless strategy sessions over the years. Today, it held just 2 men reviewing evidence of betrayal. "The pattern is unambiguous," Marcus said, sliding his own compiled report across the table. "I've been tracking suspicious access for 3 months, but couldn't determine if it was targeted probing or internal. I should have brought it to you sooner." Tyler shook his head. "You were respecting personal boundaries. I'm the one who gave her that access." Marcus, a former cybersecurity specialist for the government, had always maintained a professional demeanor that balanced caution with respect. Today, that restraint showed cracks as he pointed to specific entries in his report. "Look at the timing. These proprietary files were accessed Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, Harrington announces a strategic shift incorporating suspiciously similar architecture." Tyler nodded. "Processing." "And these financial records?" "Hotel charges in cities where Harrington was speaking, restaurants minutes from Nexus Tech headquarters, all on cards you provided." Marcus hesitated. "Tyler, I need to ask, how much does she know about Project Sentinel?" The question hung heavy. Project Sentinel represented the future of Matthews Tech, a revolutionary approach to quantum-resistant encryption that would render current security protocols obsolete. It was Tyler's legacy project, still in development. "Too much," Tyler admitted. "I shared the conceptual framework with her last month. Thought she'd be interested in the design implications." Marcus exhaled slowly. "Then we need to assume it's compromised." Tyler leaned back, his face betraying a rare moment of emotional fatigue. "I trusted her completely." which speaks to your character, not your judgment, Marcus replied firmly. We need to loop in Barbara immediately. This crosses into legal territory. Industrial espionage has serious implications. Tyler nodded, his strategic mind already shifting from shock to response. Set up the call. And Marcus, he paused, meeting his security officer's eyes. Thank you for maintaining your vigilance even when I didn't. Marcus's usually stoic expression softened briefly. That's my job. And Tyler? People like Harrington and Sarah, they mistake kindness for weakness. They don't understand that principles aren't limitations. They're what give you strength when everything else falls apart. The words struck a chord. Tyler straightened, resolve replacing vulnerability. It was time to have a direct conversation with Sarah. The downtown coffee shop provided neutral territory, public enough to discourage scenes, private enough for difficult conversations. Tyler arrived early, selecting a corner table that afforded some privacy while allowing him to watch Sarah's approach through the front windows. She entered, looking immaculate as always, her designer outfit carefully selected to project creative sophistication. Only someone who knew her well would notice the concealed anxiety in her slightly too rapid movements, the forced quality of her smile. Tyler. She leaned in as if to kiss his cheek, but he remained seated, his slight withdrawal halting her momentum. Her smile faltered. You've had me worried sick. Why haven't you answered my calls? I think we both know why, Tyler replied, his voice level. Sit down, Sarah. She complied, immediately reaching for his hand across the table. He moved it away, placing a printed server log between them instead. What's this? She asked, though her eyes flickered with recognition. Access records showing you downloading proprietary files at 2 a.m. Financial records of hotel stays coinciding with Harrington's speaking engagements. And this, he slid forward an email he'd recovered from a backup of her laptop, which she'd connected to his home network, discussing my company's vulnerabilities with Alex. Sarah's transformation was remarkable to witness. The concerned girlfriend vanished, replaced momentarily by cold calculation before she pivoted to indignation. You're tracking me? Going through my emails? Her voice rose slightly. That's controlling behavior, Tyler. This is exactly why I've been feeling suffocated. A couple at the next table glanced over. Tyler maintained his composure. Sarah, we both know what this is. The question is whether we handle it privately or through the legal system. Legal system? Her laugh held no humor. For what? Using my boyfriend's Wi-Fi? You gave me that access, Tyler. You wanted me to use your resources. For your design work, not industrial espionage. Her eyes narrowed, voice dropping. You're overreacting. This is why Alex says your business approach is outdated. All these paranoid security measures. Tyler simply gathered the documents, his movement deliberate. I think we're done here. As he stood to leave, Sarah grabbed his wrist. You have no idea who you're dealing with, she hissed, mask fully slipped. That, Tyler replied quietly, is becoming increasingly clear. The Northwest Technology Summit should have been a triumph. Matthews Tech was unveiling enhanced security protocols that would cement their industry leadership. Instead, Tyler found himself in the epicenter of a carefully orchestrated character assassination. It began with subtle cues. Investors who'd confirmed meetings suddenly unavailable, colleagues offering concerned glances, whispered conversations that ceased when he approached. By mid-morning, Elena appeared at his elbow, her expression grim. You need to see this, she said, showing him her tablet. Sarah's social media accounts displayed a masterclass in narrative control. Artfully filtered photos accompanied heartfelt paragraphs about finally escaping a controlling relationship and finding courage to leave emotional manipulation. One post detailed how she'd walked on eggshells for years around his explosive temper, a particularly creative fiction given Tyler's notorious calm under pressure. The posts were spreading rapidly through the tech community, amplified by Alex Harrington's subtle support via strategic comments and shares. "There's more," Elena said quietly, navigating to an industry blog featuring an exclusive interview with Sarah, portraying herself as a whistleblower concerned about ethical issues at Matthews Tech. Tyler maintained his composure as a colleague approached. Richard Coleman, a respected venture capitalist who'd known Tyler for decades. "Difficult timing," Richard said carefully, nodding toward a group of investors now actively avoiding Tyler. "Sarah's allegations are making rounds." "They're false," Tyler replied simply. Richard studied him. "I assumed as much given what I know of you, but perception creates reality in this business," Tyler finished. "I'm aware." His phone buzzed with a message from Barbara. "Emergency. Call immediately." Stepping away to a quiet corner, Tyler called his attorney. "Sarah's filed for a temporary restraining order," Barbara informed him without preamble. "Claims she fears for her safety in the office. Judge granted it pending a hearing. You can't access the East Wing where her design studio is located." The East Wing also housed several key development labs. The timing, just before Matthews Tech's major product announcement, couldn't be coincidental. "She's never going to testify under oath," Tyler said. "The strategic implications clear. This is about disrupting operations and controlling narrative." "Precisely," Barbara agreed. And Tyler, "She's meeting with 3 of your competitors tomorrow, positioning herself as having insider knowledge about problematic practices at Matthews Tech." As Tyler ended the call, he caught sight of his reflection in a decorative mirror, composed, dignified, showing none of the turmoil beneath. The businessman others had underestimated his entire career, the man who'd survived poverty, skepticism, and countless challenges. Now he needed to survive. Betrayal turned to public destruction. The penthouse felt cavernous in its silence. Tyler had dismissed his housekeeper for the evening, needing solitude to process the day's events, the restraining order, the character assassination, the strategic dismantling of both his personal and professional reputation. For the first time since receiving Sarah's misdirected text, Tyler allowed himself to feel the full weight of the betrayal. 10 years of shared life, vacations, holidays, confidences exchanged in the dark. She had known his childhood stories of poverty and humiliation, the lingering insecurities that success had masked but never erased, all weaponized now with surgical precision. Tyler moved through the living room, stopping at the digital photo frame displaying images from their relationship. Sarah at gallery openings he'd financed, holidays at properties he'd purchased, always smiling, always seemingly genuine. Had any of it been real? With deliberate movement, Tyler shut off the frame, the images vanishing to black. He thought of his parents, his father who'd worked double shifts at the factory until his heart gave out, his mother who'd cleaned houses to keep them fed after his death. They'd taught him that character revealed itself not in easy times, but in moments of crisis. "You fall down 7 times, you get up 8, his mother used to say in her pragmatic way. "And you do it with dignity." Tyler moved to his office, the emotion of the moment crystallizing into something harder, more focused. He would not be defined by Sarah's betrayal or Alex's opportunism. He would not give them the satisfaction of witnessing his pain, Most importantly, he would not allow them to damage the company that employed hundreds of people who depended on him, people who had believed in his vision and worked loyally to build something meaningful. In the reflection of his darkened computer screen, Tyler saw determination replace devastation. Sarah and Alex had miscalculated fundamentally. They thought they were targeting a vulnerable old man who would crumble under public humiliation. They'd forgotten who he was, what he'd overcome to build everything they now sought to destroy. "They think I built this company by giving up when things got hard," Tyler said to the empty room. "They're about to learn otherwise." Tyler's home office transformed into a strategic command center as midnight approached. Legal pads covered with his precise handwriting outlined assets, vulnerabilities, and response options. The methodical approach that had built his business now turned toward its protection. His first call had been to Barbara Reynolds. Unlike many attorneys who counseled caution to the point of paralysis, Barbara believed in strategic offense when warranted. 20 years as Matthews Tech's legal counsel had earned her Tyler's complete trust. "We'll counter-sue for defamation and industrial espionage," she'd advised. "But Tyler, this gets public. Messy. Are you prepared for that?" "I'm not the one who should fear scrutiny," he'd replied. Now, reviewing his accumulated resources, Tyler recognized his lifelong habit of meticulous documentation would prove crucial. Every financial contribution to Sarah's career documented, every access log preserved, every communication backed up. The paranoia she'd mocked would be her undoing. Tyler methodically listed his support network, people whose loyalty came from respect rather than advantage. Elena, whose efficiency masked fierce protectiveness. Marcus, whose security expertise would prove invaluable. Richard Coleman, once he saw the evidence. Longtime employees who knew Tyler's character beyond reputation. Reaching into his desk drawer, Tyler removed an old leather notebook, his original business plan, written when Matthews Tech operated from his garage. The final page held his foundational principles, handwritten 20 years earlier. Build something that lasts, never sacrifice integrity for advantage. Remember where you came from. Protect what matters. Those principles hadn't changed, even as the company grew from one employee to hundreds. They would guide his response now. Tyler closed the notebook, decision made. He would not engage in public mudslinging or emotional retaliation. He would respond with strategic precision, documented facts, and the quiet confidence that had built his success from nothing. Sarah and Alex had weaponized his personal vulnerabilities. They would soon discover they had fundamentally underestimated his professional strengths. "This is remarkably comprehensive," Barbara said, reviewing the evidence Tyler had assembled. Morning sunlight streamed through her office windows as she examined financial records, server logs, and communication timelines arranged in meticulous order. "I've always documented everything," Tyler replied. "Habit, from starting with nothing." Barbara nodded, separating documents into categories with practiced efficiency. At 65, she'd built her reputation on formidable intelligence and uncompromising ethics, qualities that had drawn Tyler to her services 15 years earlier. "Sarah's public claims are directly contradicted by these records," she observed. "The contrast between her social media narrative and documented reality is striking." She held up a file containing years of emails between Tyler and Sarah. "Your communications show consistent respect and support, no evidence of controlling behavior or emotional abuse. Meanwhile," she gestured to the server logs, "these show systematic, unauthorized access to proprietary information, coinciding perfectly with Nexus Tech's product announcements." "Will it be enough?" Tyler asked. Barbara's expression turned grimly satisfied. "More than enough for civil action against both parties. The industrial espionage angle elevates this beyond relationship drama to potential criminal liability." She leaned forward, fixing Tyler with a direct gaze. "But I want to be clear about what this means. Filing these actions makes everything public. Your private life, your business operations, all of it becomes record." Sarah's already controlling the narrative in the court of public opinion. "Are you prepared for this fight?" Tyler considered the question with appropriate gravity. "When I started with nothing, investors told me I'd never compete with established players. When I insisted on ethical security practices, competitors said I'd fail. When I refused to compromise on quality for quick profit, analysts called me obsolete." He gestured to the evidence between them. "I didn't build this company by running from difficult truths, Barbara. I'm not starting now." Her expression softened slightly, a rarity for the formidable attorney. "This level of documentation is exceptional, Tyler. Most clients come to me with feelings and suspicions. You've brought evidence that would satisfy a federal prosecutor." "Growing up with nothing teaches you to protect what you build," Tyler replied simply. Sarah mistook that caution for paranoia. She's about to discover the difference. The private dining room at Canlis Restaurant provided both security and discretion for what Tyler was calling a strategic assessment. Around the table sat his core response team. Barbara with her legal acumen, Marcus representing security concerns, Elena managing operational continuity, and Richard Coleman bringing industry perspective. "The situation has 3 dimensions," Tyler began, his leadership evident in crisis: legal, operational, and reputational. "We need coordinated response across all 3. Barbara outlined the legal strategy first. "We're filing for industrial espionage and breach of confidentiality against both Sarah and Harrington. The evidence is exceptionally strong. Additionally, we're countering the restraining order with our own filing for defamation and business interference." "Timeline?" Tyler asked. "Papers will be filed tomorrow morning." "We've requested an expedited hearing on the restraining order given its impact on business operations." Marcus followed with security considerations. "I've revoked all of Sarah's access credentials and initiated Protocol Obsidian." The reference to Matthews Tech's most comprehensive security response earned a raised eyebrow from Richard. "Obsidian? Isn't that somewhat extreme?" the venture capitalist asked. "Not when you consider what's at stake," Elena interjected, displaying uncharacteristic intensity. "Project Sentinel represents years of development. If Harrington gets functional specs, Matthews Tech loses its competitive advantage for the next decade." Richard looked troubled. "I've known you 20 years, Tyler. Supported your ventures when others wouldn't. I initially found Sarah's claims difficult to reconcile with the man I know, but this," he gestured to the evidence Barbara had shared, "this is unambiguous." Tyler acknowledged Richard's support with a nod. "I need your voice in the investor community, Richard. Not defending me, sharing the documented facts." "You'll have it," Richard assured him, "though you should prepare for Harrington to escalate. He's never been known for ethical restraint." "Which is precisely why we'll maintain ours," Tyler responded firmly. "We'll pursue legal remedies aggressively, but we will not engage in personal attacks or public mudslinging. The evidence speaks for itself." The meeting continued with detailed planning, contingencies for various scenarios, communication strategies, business continuity measures. Throughout, Tyler maintained the steady leadership that had earned him respect throughout his career. The quiet dignity that Sarah had mistaken for weakness. Tyler's home office had transformed over 3 days. Walls now adorned with timeline charts, legal strategies, and contingency plans. The digital war room of a man who approached betrayal with the same methodical focus he'd applied to building his company. Elena entered with fresh coffee, surveying the organized documentation with approval. Barbara called. Papers were filed this morning as planned. Tyler nodded, reviewing a background report on Sarah that his investigators had compiled. The pattern emerged clearly. Previous relationships with successful men, each ending when a more advantageous connection appeared. Tyler wasn't the first mentor she'd discarded, merely the most prominent. "Did you see Harrington's latest press release?" Elena asked, handing Tyler her tablet. The announcement detailed Nexus Tech's revolutionary security approach, language that mirrored Matthews Tech's proprietary documentation almost verbatim. The timing confirmed their strategy. Rush stolen technology to market before legal proceedings could halt them. "They're accelerating," Tyler observed. "They know what's coming." "The team's ready," Elena assured him. "Security protocols upgraded, development teams briefed, investors individually contacted with evidence packets." Tyler set down the tablet, momentarily allowing fatigue to show. The betrayal's toll wasn't just emotional. The strategic response had required round-the-clock work during a week when he'd barely slept. "You should rest," Elena suggested, concern evident. "The hearing's tomorrow." "Soon," Tyler promised, though they both recognized the unlikelihood. As Elena left, Tyler returned to his preparations, securing additional documentation for the coming legal battle. His phone buzzed with a message from Marcus. Sarah attempted access to Development Lab 3. Security protocols worked. She left without incident. The desperate move confirmed their strategy was working. Sarah and Alex hadn't anticipated Tyler's comprehensive response. They'd expected emotional reaction, public arguments, messy accusations that would reinforce their narrative of an unstable, controlling man. Instead, they'd encountered strategic precision backed by irrefutable evidence. The kind of response that reminded competitors why Tyler Matthews had succeeded where others failed. His gaze fell on a framed photo of his parents, his father in factory overalls, his mother in the simple dress she wore to clean houses after his death. Their sacrifices had taught him the value of perseverance, of dignity under pressure. Some people mistake kindness for weakness. That's always been a dangerous error. Judge Harriet Wells had earned her reputation for no-nonsense efficiency during 20 years on the bench. The emergency hearing regarding Sarah's restraining order took an unexpected turn when Barbara presented Matthews Tech's comprehensive countersuit. "Your Honor, we move to dissolve the temporary restraining order against Mr. Matthews as it was obtained through demonstrably false statements," Barbara began, her confidence backed by methodical preparation. "Additionally, we've filed actions against Ms. Caldwell and Alexander Harrington for industrial espionage, breach of confidentiality, and business interference." Sarah's attorney, clearly unprepared for the scope and detail of the filing, requested time to review the evidence. Judge Wells's response was immediate. "Counselor, your client filed for emergency relief claiming imminent danger. Now faced with contradicting evidence, you request delays." Her gaze sharpened. "I'll grant you 30 minutes to confer with your client, not a minute more." Tyler maintained his composed demeanor throughout, even as Sarah attempted to catch his eye from across the courtroom. Her designer outfit and carefully cultivated vulnerable expression contrasted with his straightforward business attire and dignified reserve. When proceedings resumed, the transformation was remarkable. Sarah's attorney approached the bench with visible reluctance. Your Honor, my client wishes to withdraw her petition for the restraining order. Judge Wells studied Sarah with experienced scrutiny. Ms. Caldwell, are you doing this voluntarily and without coercion? Yes, Your Honor, Sarah replied, her voice lacking its usual confidence. Very well. The temporary restraining order is dissolved. The judge turned to Barbara. Regarding Matthews Technologies' countersuit, we'll proceed with normal discovery timeframes. However, she fixed Sarah and her counsel with a stern look, I've reviewed the preliminary evidence submitted. I strongly advise all parties to consider their positions carefully before proceeding to trial. The message was clear. The evidence was compelling enough that fighting it would be ill-advised. Outside the courthouse, Elena waited with the company car, her expression brightening at Tyler's approach. The restraining order? Dissolved, Tyler confirmed. Effective immediately. The team will be relieved, she said, opening the car door. Access to the East Wing laboratories has been problematic for development. As they drove away, Tyler caught sight of Sarah standing with her attorney, her practiced poise faltering as reality set in. The first consequence of many to come. Phase 1 complete, he said quietly. Now for Harrington. Tyler reviewed quarterly projections with his executive team when the alert came. Sarah Caldwell had entered the building. Despite the dissolved restraining order, her access credentials remained revoked, standard protocol for terminated relationships with the company. She's demanding to see you, security informed him via intercom, becoming quite insistent. Tyler exchanged glances with Elena. Have Marcus escort her to conference room B. I'll speak with her briefly. Elena's concern was evident. Are you sure that's wise? Barbara advised documenting any contact, Tyler replied, straightening his tie. And I'd rather control the interaction than have her create a scene in the lobby. When Tyler entered the conference room, Sarah had composed herself into a picture of wounded dignity. The designer outfit, the artfully arranged hair, the practiced vulnerability in her expression, all carefully calculated for emotional impact. Tyler, she began, voice softened to the tone that had once seemed genuine, this has gone too far. We need to talk privately, without lawyers. That's not possible, he replied evenly, noting Marcus's presence by the door and the active security cameras. Any communication should go through legal channels now. After 10 years together? Her expression shifted to indignation. You're really going to let lawyers destroy everything we built? You destroyed it, Sarah. The moment you decided our relationship was a means to access confidential information. Her strategy pivoted instantly. I could destroy you in the press. One interview about your controlling behavior, your obsessive monitoring, all contradicted by documented evidence, Tyler interjected calmly. Evidence now in legal record. Frustration flashed across her face before she attempted another approach, tears welling. I made a mistake. I was confused, feeling trapped. Alex manipulated me. As you manipulated me, Tyler observed without rancor. The difference is, I have proof of yours. Security footage later captured Sarah's attempt to access Tyler's private office after he left, thwarted by Elena's vigilance and upgraded security protocols. She's getting desperate, Marcus noted, reviewing the footage with Tyler. That makes her unpredictable. Tyler nodded, watching Sarah's frustrated departure on the monitor. Inform Barbara. We'll need to accelerate our timeline on the Harrington filing. The calm in his voice belied the personal cost of these encounters, each one requiring him to face the woman who had weaponized his trust against him. They're rushing to market with Sentinel's core functionality, Marcus reported, displaying side-by-side comparisons of Matthews Tech's proprietary architecture and Nexus Tech's newly announced platform. The similarities are undeniable. The emergency strategy session in Tyler's office included Barbara joining via secure video conference, her expression grim. "This changes our timeline. We need to file for immediate injunctive relief to prevent them from implementing the stolen technology." "On what grounds?" Tyler asked, though he already anticipated the answer. "Irreparable harm," Barbara replied. "Once they deploy using your architecture, the competitive advantage is lost even if we win later. Judge Wells has already seen the preliminary evidence. She'll understand the urgency." Tyler studied the market projections Elena had prepared. Matthews Tech had weathered the initial reputational damage from Sarah's allegations, largely due to Richard Coleman's quiet advocacy among key investors. But Nexus launching with stolen technology could cause lasting damage. "How quickly can we move?" he asked. "Papers filed by morning, emergency hearing possible by end of week," Barbara assured him. "Tyler, you should know, I've received inquiries from 3 industry publications requesting comment on the case. Word is spreading." Tyler considered the implications. Public attention was inevitable once legal proceedings advanced, though he'd spent decades avoiding personal spotlight, preferring to let his work speak for itself. That luxury was no longer available. "Prepare a simple statement confirming legal action regarding intellectual property theft. Nothing about the personal aspects." Tyler's preference for dignity over drama remained intact despite provocation. "We focus on protecting the company, not punishing Sarah." As the meeting concluded, Elena lingered. Richard Coleman called. "Several industry leaders have reached out to him privately, questioning Sarah's narrative based on their own experiences with you. The tide is beginning to turn." Tyler nodded, acknowledging this development with characteristic restraint. Personal vindication mattered less than protecting what he'd built, not just for himself, but for the hundreds who depended on Matthews Tech for their livelihoods. "But one more thing," Elena added, hesitation evident. "Sarah's been attempting to contact your sister in Phoenix." This revelation struck deeper than the others. Tyler's relationship with his only living family member had always been kept separate from his business life. A private sanctuary Sarah was now attempting to weaponize. "I'll call Catherine myself," Tyler said quietly. "She should hear this from me." As Elena left, Tyler turned to the window overlooking Seattle's skyline. The city where he'd arrived with nothing but determination and vision 30 years earlier. The landscape he'd helped transform through innovation rather than exploitation. Sarah and Alex had mistaken his ethical boundaries for vulnerability, his restraint for weakness, his privacy for shame. They were about to discover their fundamental miscalculation. Courtroom 15B fell silent as Judge Wells reviewed the evidence presented during the 3-hour hearing. The gallery, filled with technology journalists and industry figures, waited for her ruling on Matthews Tech's request for preliminary injunction against Nexus Technologies. Tyler sat composed beside Barbara, his dignified presence contrasting sharply with Alex Harrington's increasingly agitated demeanor at the defense table. Sarah occupied a middle position, called as witness for both sides, her carefully constructed narrative crumbling under Barbara's methodical cross-examination. The similarity between these architectural specifications is not coincidental. The technical expert had testified, displaying side-by-side comparisons. The probability of independent development is statistically negligible. Sarah's testimony had proven even more damaging. Barbara's questioning had systematically dismantled her claims of abuse while establishing clear evidence of her accessing confidential information. "So to clarify," Barbara had asked with devastating precision, "you accessed these files at 2:17 a.m. and 17 minutes later emailed Mr. Harrington with subject line, 'What you needed,' yet you maintain this was not corporate espionage?" Sarah's composed facade had cracked visibly. "I was just sharing general industry information." General information that happened to include proprietary encryption algorithms developed over 5 years by Matthews Technologies. The judge cleared her throat, drawing attention back to the bench. "Based on the substantial evidence presented, this court finds that Matthews Technologies has demonstrated likelihood of success on the merits of its claims and irreparable harm without intervention." She fixed Harrington with a stern gaze. "The court hereby grants the preliminary injunction preventing Nexus Technologies from implementing, marketing, or deploying any technology substantially similar to the proprietary systems developed by Matthews Technologies, pending final resolution of this matter." The tension in Harrington's jaw was visible even from across the courtroom. The injunction effectively halted his company's planned product launch, a devastating setback after months of development and promotion. Additionally, Judge Wells continued, based on evidence suggesting misappropriation of trade secrets, the court orders all Nexus Technologies systems incorporating disputed architecture to be placed in third-party escrow pending trial. As the proceedings concluded, Tyler maintained his composed demeanor despite the significant victory. Outside the courtroom, reporters called questions, cameras flashed, but he simply nodded acknowledgement of Barbara's skilled representation before proceeding to the waiting car. "A first round goes decisively to us," Barbara noted once they were alone. "Harrington will feel pressure from investors after this setback. Settlement discussions may be forthcoming." Tyler nodded, his expression thoughtful rather than triumphant. Justice was proceeding, but the personal cost of public exposure remained substantial. The headline in Technology Today left little room for interpretation. "Matthews Tech scores major victory in espionage case against Nexus." Subheadings detailed the preliminary injunction, with sidebar articles examining the personal relationship that turned to corporate theft. Tyler set the tablet aside as Elena entered his office with the morning briefing. 3 days had passed since the hearing, and the industry response was crystallizing. "Nexus stock is down 17%, Elena reported. 2 board members have resigned, and investor forums are questioning Harrington's judgment." "And our position?" Tyler asked. "Strengthening." Richard says 3 major clients who'd been hesitating on renewals have signed extended contracts. The technical community appears to be rallying around us as details emerge. Tyler nodded, taking measured satisfaction in the professional vindication while maintaining perspective on the human cost. No victory in court could erase the personal betrayal or the public exposure of his private life. His phone signaled an incoming call. Richard Coleman. "The response has been remarkable," Richard began without preamble. "I've received calls from 6 industry leaders offering public statements supporting your character and business ethics. People remember how you've conducted yourself for decades, Tyler. One court case is revealing what many of us have always known." "I appreciate that," Tyler replied, genuine gratitude in his voice. "There's more," Richard continued. 2 former associates of Sarah have come forward with similar experiences. Relationships that ended when better opportunities appeared, followed by attempts to leverage confidential information. This news brought no satisfaction, only confirmation of a pattern Tyler wished he'd recognized sooner. "What about Harrington?" he asked. "Nexus Board has called an emergency meeting. Rumor says they're considering leadership changes." Richard paused. "Tyler, I owe you an apology. When Sarah's allegations first surfaced, I should have questioned them more thoroughly given our history." "You did what any reasonable person would," Tyler assured him. "Evidence matters more than assumptions, a principle I've always tried to follow." As they concluded the call, Elena reappeared with an urgent message. "Sarah's requesting a meeting. Says it's personal, not legal." Tyler considered briefly before responding. "Tell Barbara to be present. Whatever Sarah wants to discuss, it should be properly documented." The lessons of trust betrayed had been thoroughly learned. The conference room felt charged with tension despite its comfortable furnishings. Tyler sat beside Barbara, facing Sarah across the polished table. The contrast between them had never been more apparent. His quiet dignity against her increasingly desperate demeanor. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," Sarah began, her voice carefully modulated to project sincerity. "I wanted to speak privately, but I understand why you brought counsel." Tyler simply nodded, waiting. "I've made terrible mistakes," she continued. "I was confused, manipulated by Alex. He pressured me for information, made me believe your business approaches were outdated." Barbara remained professionally impassive, though Tyler noted her slight shift, recognition of a strategy rather than genuine remorse. "I'm not here to assign blame," Tyler replied evenly. "What did you want to discuss?" Sarah straightened, her expression shifting to one Tyler had never seen before, calculated vulnerability with an undercurrent of triumph. "I'm pregnant." The silence that followed lasted only seconds, though it seemed longer. "It's Alex's," she added quickly, apparently misreading Tyler's composed reaction as shock. "But he's abandoned me since the court ruling. I have nowhere to turn, and I thought, given our history, that I would provide financial support." Tyler finished for her. "We were together 10 years, Sarah pressed. "Whatever mistakes I made, that meant something." Tyler studied her with clear-eyed assessment. "If true, your pregnancy deserves appropriate support from its father. My attorney will provide Alex's legal counsel's contact information." "You can't just dismiss me like this." Sarah's voice hardened, the vulnerable facade cracking. "After everything we shared—" "What we shared," Tyler interrupted gently, "ended the moment you chose to betray not just my trust, but the integrity of my life's work. I wish you well, Sarah, but our paths diverge here." As they left the meeting, Barbara commented quietly, "That was her final play." "Yes," Tyler agreed, feeling an unexpected lightness, not vindication or triumph, but the peace that comes with complete emotional emancipation. "I believe it was." 6 months after the court ruling, Matthews Technologies headquarters hummed with renewed purpose. The expanded security protocols developed in response to the breach had become industry standards adopted by firms worldwide. The conference room that once hosted crisis meetings now featured framed articles documenting the company's renaissance-following corporate espionage attempt. Tyler surveyed the executive team gathered for quarterly planning, noting the blend of veteran leaders and promising new talent. The crisis had ultimately strengthened rather than weakened his organization, a testament to resilience built on authentic value rather than manipulation. "The settlement terms have been fully implemented," Elena reported, concluding her briefing. "Nexus Technologies has complied with all requirements, including the permanent injunction against using our architectural approaches." Tyler nodded. aware of the developments that had followed the court victory. Harrington had been removed as CEO by his board, the company's valuation dropping 40% before stabilizing under new leadership. The swift corporate consequences had rendered protracted legal battles unnecessary, leading to settlement terms heavily favoring Matthews Tech. "And Project Sentinel?" Tyler asked. Marcus smiled slightly, a rare expression from the normally stoic security chief. "Implementation proceeding ahead of schedule." The development team's innovations during the crisis period actually improved several key components. The meeting continued with forward-looking discussions, market expansion, research initiatives, strategic partnerships. Notable in its absence was any mention of Sarah or the personal aspects of the betrayal. The company had moved forward, integrating lessons without dwelling on past wounds. As the team dispersed, Richard Coleman remained behind. Now serving as board advisor following substantial investment, he'd become an even stronger ally through the crisis. "Tyler," he began, uncharacteristic hesitation in his voice, "the Technology Council is presenting its Lifetime Achievement Award next month. The committee voted unanimously to recognize your contributions." Tyler's reflexive privacy made him inclined to decline, but Richard continued, "Your handling of the crisis showed the industry that ethics and innovation aren't mutually exclusive. That matters, especially to younger entrepreneurs looking for models to follow." Tyler considered, then nodded acceptance. Perhaps some good could come from making his approach more visible, a legacy beyond products and profits. Steel, after all, emerged stronger from fire. The Matthews Foundation for Ethical Innovation occupied a light-filled space overlooking Elliott Bay. Established with a portion of the settlement funds, its mission reflected Tyler's commitment to creating positive impact from difficult experience. Today, he met with Jasmine Chen, a promising young entrepreneur whose security startup showed exceptional potential alongside concerning vulnerabilities. "Your encryption approach is innovative," Tyler acknowledged, reviewing her business plan. "But these access protocols create significant exposure points." Jasmine frowned, the defensive posture of youth evident in her response. "We need flexibility for rapid deployment. Too many security layers slow adoption." "At the cost of fundamental protection," Tyler observed mildly. "Short-term convenience traded for long-term vulnerability." "With respect, Mr. Matthews, the market moves faster now than in your early days. Companies that don't prioritize speed get left behind." Tyler smiled slightly, recognizing his younger self in her impatience. "May I share something I learned at considerable cost?" At her nod, he continued, "Success isn't measured by how quickly you advance, but by whether you're still standing when others fall. I've watched hundreds of revolutionary companies disappear because they built on shortcuts rather than substance." He turned to the window, gathering thoughts before continuing. "The hardest lesson I've learned is that integrity isn't just a moral quality, it's a business essential. When you compromise fundamental principles for immediate advantage, you create vulnerabilities that extend far beyond technical systems." "Like what happened with Sarah Caldwell?" Jasmine asked, then immediately looked embarrassed. "Sorry, that's personal." "It's public record," Tyler replied, without discomfort. "And yes, a perfect example. Trust extended without verification created vulnerability. A principle applies in both personal and professional realms, or it isn't really a principle at all." Jasmine studied him with newfound respect. "Everyone expected you to crumble when that scandal broke. Instead, your company emerged stronger." "Because we built on solid foundation rather than expedient shortcuts," Tyler explained. "The same foundation I'm suggesting you consider." As their meeting concluded, Jasmine promised to revisit her security architecture with Tyler's guidance. another small victory in his emerging second act, helping others avoid the pitfalls he'd navigated. The true measure of wisdom, his mother had often said, isn't avoiding mistakes altogether, but ensuring they teach you something worth passing on. In that measure, at least, recent pain had yielded lasting value. The Seattle Symphony benefit auction had not been on Tyler's calendar until Elena insisted his presence would significantly impact the foundation's public profile. Reluctantly agreeing, he found himself discussing educational initiatives with the symphony's director when a woman's voice interrupted them. "Your foundation's work with technology access for underserved communities is remarkable, Mr. Matthews." Tyler turned to find himself facing Dr. Catherine Reeves, the university's computer science chair and a respected voice in ethical technology development. They'd served on panels together, but never spoken at length. "Please, it's Tyler," he corrected with genuine warmth. "And the foundation merely supports the real work being done by educators like yourself." Their conversation flowed naturally from professional respect to shared perspectives on technology's societal impact. Refreshingly, Catherine showed no interest in the public aspects of his past, focusing instead on ideas and principles that had guided his career. "Your students must appreciate having a mentor who values ethics as much as innovation," Tyler observed as they moved to a quieter corner of the reception. Catherine smiled, a flash of humor lighting her expression. Some appreciate it after graduation when they realize ethical foundations outlast technical trends. The youngest ones still believe speed trumps sustainability. "A perspective I've encountered recently," Tyler chuckled, sharing his experience with Jasmine. As the evening progressed, Tyler found himself more engaged than he'd been in social settings for years. Catherine's intelligent observations and unpretentious manner created conversation that felt genuine rather than performative, a stark contrast to what he now recognized as Sarah's calculated charm. When Catherine mentioned an upcoming lecture series on technology ethics, Tyler found himself accepting her invitation to contribute, something he would have reflexively declined months earlier. Later, driving home along the waterfront, Tyler realized the evening had passed without a single thought of betrayal or loss. The experience created not hope for specific new relationship, but something more fundamental, evidence that his capacity for authentic connection remained intact despite profound disillusionment. At his penthouse, Tyler moved to the window, where he'd stood reading Sarah's misdirected text a year earlier. The same city lights sparkled below, but the man gazing at them had been transformed, not hardened by betrayal, but tempered by it, stronger at the broken places. The true measure of wealth, I've come to understand, lies not in financial resources, but in integrity and self-respect, qualities that cannot be purchased or stolen. When betrayal stripped away the relationship I believed defined my later years, what remained were the principles that had guided me from the beginning. Build something meaningful, maintain dignity under pressure, and remember where you came from. We all face moments that test not just our resilience, but our fundamental understanding of ourselves and others. The wisdom accumulated through decades of life doesn't prevent such challenges, but it provides the foundation for weathering them without losing our essential character. Experience may not shield us from pain, but it offers perspective that youth simply cannot possess, the knowledge that no crisis, however devastating, represents the entirety of our story. The painful dissolution of trust reveals as much as it destroys. In the aftermath of betrayal, I discovered the authentic loyalty of colleagues who stood firm not from obligation, but respect. I recognized the strength that comes from facing public humiliation with private dignity. Most importantly, I reaffirmed that success built on exploitation eventually collapses, while success built on genuine value endures. For those who have experienced similar betrayals, and life grants few exemptions from this particular education, I offer this perspective. Your worth is not determined by another's ability to recognize it. Your dignity comes not from how others treat you, but from how you respond to that treatment. The hardest lessons often yield the most valuable wisdom, if we have the courage to extract it from our pain rather than being defined by it. The chapters we don't anticipate often reveal our truest character. In that revelation lies not just recovery, but the possibility of renewal stronger than what came before, steel forged in fire, tempered by experience, and ultimately more resilient for having been tested.